What is up, everybody? Welcome to Half-Ass Pod. It's your boy Corn, as usual. But ladies and gentlemen, we have none other than the illustrator, the editor, the author, the creator, the end-all and be-all of not only Walter Paisley Cafe, but also Spidal. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Plaid. Mark, say what's up to the people, man.
Konnichiwa, hola, hello, and hello. I hope everyone is doing well that is watching this and beyond.
Konnichiwa it's one I haven't heard in a while. That's one great I haven't heard in a while. That's a
good
one.
Well, I'm studying languages on Duolingo, so I just did a rundown of all the languages I'm studying. And hello is a greeting in German and Swedish. So that's So I'm studying 4, but I only said 3. So and then of course I said my native language, which is English. Last time I checked.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we are reviewing the movie Showtime. It is starring Eddie Murphy, Robert De Niro, Rene Russo, and William Shatner. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this movie review, just in case you all didn't know what podcast this is. Hey, and shout out to Terry the neighbor.
Terry,
what is up?
Here in the house.
We got Terry in the house.
Thanks for being with us again, buddy.
We got Terry in the house. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Showtime. This movie, honestly, a simple movie, right? So Eddie Murphy was playing an aspiring actor who also had a day job as a policeman. Robert De Niro was an actual policeman in this movie. And he was a detective, right?
Yeah, he was a detective. Yep.
So when you take a detective and a day job policeman that's being an aspiring actor, especially being played by Eddie Murphy, you're going to get something special. You're going to get something a weird mix, but not in a bad way. Now, with that being said, look. This movie is, I don't care what anybody says. This movie is still somewhat of a classic. Even though, the critics hated it, and I can see why. I can see why people, if someone were to say this movie sucked, I could totally understand why they would say that. But to me, this movie had me laughing. Even watching it again as, a full-grown adult for the first time, it was funny. I enjoyed Eddie Murphy and I enjoyed Robert De Niro with his, Robert De Niro always plays like this serious, stone cold guy sometimes, So, look, he played that well. He always plays that role well. And the fact that he's a detective along with Eddie Murphy, and then you got Rene Russo in the mix, and you got, William Shatner every here and there throughout the movie. This was fun. It was a fun ride. I enjoyed it. And we're going to get into some of the scenes here in a second. But Mark, I want to know what were your thoughts when you first watched this movie?
Well, a little mixed. The good points that I could say about it is that, I found it entertaining. I laughed at a few points. I thought some of the ways that they were subverting the buddy cop movie tropes were clever, but on the other hand, it was still kind of a run-of-the-mill movie. That doesn't mean it's absolutely bad, but it's kind of mediocre in a sense to me because, this is a movie, and I've said this, I've used this phrase before. This is a movie that back in the day I would have watched it on a Saturday or a Sunday with a hangover, and I just felt like lying around and watching nothing that was going to challenge my brain too much. And this is definitely suited for that. But I was really happy to see Eddie Murphy. I don't know, he really fell off my radar for a long time. And when you told me about this movie, I wasn't even aware of it. And and so I'm like, oh wow, Eddie Murphy, that's someone I haven't seen in a while. And of course, it came out in 2002, but either way, wow, have you seen My Name is Dolomite?
Yes.
Okay, now have you seen any of the Dolomite movies prior?
Like the original ones, no.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I'm a big fan of those movies. And as a fan and like a multiple I've seen those Dolomite and Rudy Ray Moore movies multiple times. They're great party movies, things like that. So as a big fan of those, I thought My Name is Dolomite was amazing. It was wonderful. It's kind of like they did to Rudy Ray Moore what Tim Burton did for Ed Wood with the movie Ed Wood. And Eddie Murphy was fantastic in that role. Uh, I was shocked that I was like, why haven't I seen him? Like the guy hasn't lost it. He hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah.
So and he's getting a lot of recognition for it, and he deserves it, I think.
Yeah, but like Showtime, I felt like was a hidden movie. I felt like this movie was. I'm not saying a hidden gem, definitely not that, but it is a hidden movie that I feel like people should probably watch because it's at least to me, it's one of those movies that helps elevate. It's another check off of a check of the box for Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro, um,
They both did
because
good
it's
performances.
yeah, it's one of those movies like, yeah, Eddie Murphy kind of got slipped into, 48 Hours and then Beverly Hills Cops. And let me tell you something, I'm not old enough to remember either one of those movies. I know they were, two really great iconic movies in terms of pop culture, in terms of, the film industry, 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop. But I can't tell the difference. I know that do. I don't know which one of those two movies had that theme song. I don't know whether that was Beverly Hills
That
Cop
was Beverly Hills
or
Cop for
48 Hours.
sure.
It was Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, that was
That
Herbie
one? Okay.
Hancock that did that. He's
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
he,
See, I
he
see, because I'm not old enough to remember that kind of. You know what I mean? I'm not old enough to know that. You know what I mean? I was born in the '90s, so
yeah.
not saying I didn't see those movies like as a small child, but again, I'm not gonna remember. If they weren't, if I didn't think it was like the greatest thing on earth, like Forrest Gump was, I probably forgot. Or I would probably forget. But Showtime was definitely a movie where Eddie Murphy, I thought he was able to bring out his silly self, but while still being able to, kind of like look cool because it was still an action esque comedy movie. I as much as I want to say it was an action comedy, it wasn't too much action in it. But there were times in this movie where it was like, oh, there's some real shit going down in terms of like somebody may get shot, somebody's getting set up. Like, let me tell you something, because we talk about these buddy cop movies a lot, right? And with these buddy cop movies, we can talk about Rush Hour, which obviously those were probably one of the Rush Hour movies are probably like at the top or near the top, in terms of buddy cop movies, right? In terms of money made and
Mhm.
recognition and critics, between that Lethal Weapon, stuff like that. But now Bad Boys as well. But now you're thinking, all right, what's next? It's the early 2000s. They already started coming out with Bad Boys 2. The whole buddy cop genre is kind of dying at this point in the early 2000s. Like it's kind of dying out, and
Right.
everybody's getting into superheroes at this point, and
What
and, and
was
everybody's getting into the sci-fi action stuff at this point. You know, and
wasn't
now
Bad Boys? Was it for life? The third one, the newest one, Bad
yeah,
Boys for yeah, that was a bomb, wasn't it? I mean, I don't know. I just saw nothing but bad things about it.
yeah, I
I,
watched the movie. I didn't like it.
okay,
I didn't
yeah,
like it.
okay, and that I think I remembered you saying that you didn't like it. So yeah, it
Yeah,
didn't go over so well.
no, man, not Bad Boys 3. No, it was like watching like Fast and the Furious at that point. Except you're just watching two guys that should not be on screen at that point, playing those
Hmm.
roles. In that sense, like Martin Lawrence was completely useless in that movie. Will Smith, again, just being Will Smith, and like it was, I was like, they shouldn't have made a third one. They should not have made a third one.
Mm,
But back to Showtime. I think this movie did what it needed to do, which was it was a movie that kind of paid a little bit of a homage to the buddy cop genre. Like I don't know what it was for Western movies when Western movies were died out in a sense, right? But I remember when I was a kid, and it was that movie Texas Rangers that came out that starred Ashton Kutcher and Usher, and I thought that was the coolest thing because I was like, Oh, Ashton Kutcher from that '70s show, and then you got everybody knows who Usher is, so you're like, wow, these two in a Western movie, and then the movie turned out to be a dud. I haven't watched it again as an adult, but as a kid, I remember that movie being a dud, and very underwhelming. Um, and that was the last Western movie I saw of that genre in terms of like our day and age growing up. But now we're talking about a movie that's saying, hey, we're saying goodbye to buddy cop movies, and this is the way to. Now again, I'm not saying it completely died out because we got other guys later with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, which I thought they did a really good job poking fun at buddy cop movies in that movie. But we haven't gotten a serious one. Haven't gotten a serious one after this. So I think Showtime was a really good send off in terms of buddy cop movies. And another thing I want to say too, I want to add this in too, because I want to go back to talking about how serious they were in this movie at times. You're talking about the villain of this movie. He had a pretty good introduction in this movie, especially letting it be known like, hey, I'm the boss. I am not to be fucked with. You go back to where he meets Mos Def's character, right? The guy with the long goatee or whatever, like beard, and
Yeah,
he's in the house.
Lazy Boy.
Yeah, lazy boy, yeah, and he's in the house with his girl, and he gets the call from the big boss man. He's like, oh yeah, whatever, and he like as he's on the phone with them, he opens up the door. And the big boss man is right there at the door. He walks in, and he does that little old mafia, Russian style, like, oh, everything's okay. Gives him a little pat on the cheek, kiss on the forehead, whatever. Like,
Mhm.
oh, we're okay, yeah, we're okay. And then he leaves, and then all of a sudden you start hearing them drill the 2x4 in front of the door, and he opens the door, and the door's already like fucking blocked. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And all of a sudden he looks out the window, and you see like what 5 dudes with fucking AKs just ready to, and then yep, and then just shoot the house up, and the house collapses on him. I thought that
But
was a pretty good introduction to being a badass villain.
wasn't it kind of funny though? One thing that I thought about that scene was, I mean, it was good for dramatic effect for them to board up the door, but with the way the whole scene was executed, it really wasn't all that necessary. There wasn't a moment where Playboy and his girl could have gotten away. I mean, they just
Yeah,
started blowing away that house just moments,
yeah,
maybe a moment after that door was barricaded. But hey, at the very least, I could say they weren't going to leave anything. They didn't want to leave any gaps, so they were being
yep,
thorough at the very least.
yep. And to introducing your villain, I always say that, especially when it comes to like superhero movies. Like when you introduce your villain, you want it to be like you want like look, they don't lie when they say the first impression is the best impression, right? Like to me, I think that's the way you should introduce your villain is, hey, look, we got to let them know who's boss. We got to let them know that you mean business, especially in an action comedy like this, especially when you're saying goodbye to the buddy cop genre. That to me is when you do it, and you do it the best. You do it the most, and they execute on that. They executed on getting I can't remember what he was Russian or French or whatever the fuck, right? We do this.
Oh, you
This
mean
dude's
about?
foreign. Yeah, the
Are you
bad
talking
guy.
about? Yeah, Vargas, Caesar Vargas.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's what I was really wondering about too, and it really made me think of a few things because I couldn't pin down his accent. But I was like, okay, that might be because it's a comedy, and it's especially a comedy about subverting tropes. Kind of because it's funny. I mean, the movie was made in 2002, and I either didn't know that or I forgot when I was watching it. But when Trey was in his office and that woman comes up and pours a bunch of mail on his desk as fan mail, and
yeah,
I was like, what? And then I had to look, and I was like, oh, 2002. And
hmm
this movie had to, or it reminded me how, how that by 2002, like this movie stands, like I said, it's like saying goodbye to the buddy cop genre, at least as we knew it in the 90s and even the 80s. And
yeah,
yeah, so it's kind of like there where, you're seeing it at the cusp, but, we're seeing landline phones on walls, and
Yeah.
things like this that
Facts.
we're taking for granted now. So and even I do. I'm an old ass man, but I'm used to it. When I see landlines, like if I see a landline or somebody's house right now, I'm like, whoa, like whoa, so yeah, so that's that sort of thing that put in sort of an interesting context for me with the way it was played out in that way. Just to, I had to remind myself that it's a 2002 film, and although we've seen so many things change in our culture from from the 20th century, because we're well into the 21st century now. I mean, there's no doubt. We live in we live in a decade where people, because people go, what was that decade? The first one? What do you call it? And like the aughts, what? I don't know. 2000. The second one. What do we call this? But yeah, now we know what to call our decade, right? 2020, right? We're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
so so yeah. But the interesting thing about it being a 2002 film and sort of reflecting some transition in our society is it was right after 9/11, when everybody was saying that things are going to be different from here on. It's going to be a lot different. That was the word of the day. And although this movie wasn't intending any sort of socially conscious message,
Mhm.
that's the one thing you look at like a film like this and reflect on things like that, and look back and see, oh yeah, and then it reminds you of how things have changed and what was going on at the time, and see how good it was making on the word of the day, which was, oh, things are going to be totally different from now on. And yeah, a lot of things were changed, but after it happened, I was like, well, yeah, but we don't know. We don't know what it is. I mean, a lot of people speculated, but I'm like, because I thought, well, this could be the beginning of World War III. Like the shooting of Archduke Ferdinand was considered one of the biggest things about the beginning of World War One. It was just like one event, but it blossomed into a world war. For lack of a better word.
So I when watching this movie, I because I do want to know your thoughts on this. When watching this movie, I couldn't. And maybe it might have been like nostalgia, right? I could have. I could have just been watching this movie just for nostalgia purposes, but I do want your opinion on it. If all right, so at the beginning of the movie, you start out the movie, right? And to me, I thought it was perfect, right? Where you had Robert De Niro, you got his face, his face, he's talking to the camera pretty much, and you're thinking he's talking in front of like a bunch of adults, other, policemen or detectives, because he's saying, I get the job done, whatever. Look, when it showed the class of kids, I fucking dude, it again. I remember every single scene like it was yesterday, and I still laughed. Like I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is hilarious! This is clever! This is cool."
Well,
Starting out the movie and having a start that strong in the movie. Did you see it? Did you start having those expectations, or did you start to say, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to give this movie a chance. This movie might not be bad after all." But then as the movie starts progressing and going on, were you starting to lose interest in the movie, or were you still there throughout the entire movie until throughout its entirety?
well, my thoughts for the beginning scene, right? It was when he was at a chalkboard, and they were building some expectations, and he turns around, he's being grumpy and straight, no nonsense and all of that stuff, and then he turns
Yeah.
around and it's a classroom of grade school children. uh Funny thing I thought about that movie was I actually stopped the video and wrote a list of, because he said, uh, I never had to choose between the red and blue wire. I never saw a police car flip over and cause a chain reaction that made all the cars blow up. And he never had to jump from one roof to another. So honestly, I wrote that down because I thought, okay, they're telegraphing this, and I thought he was going to do those exact things. Because I think that, I mean, I've seen other films and I don't know, maybe it's because I just watch a lot of movies, and I
Mhm.
so I'm so used to seeing patterns and and observe them in that way. So yeah, I thought they would that was telegraphing those exact things. Uh, but it wasn't. But I really think what that first scene did was it was there to establish Robert De Niro's character, and the way I think they were establishing it was okay at the time. Especially we're looking at Saturday Night Live during the '90s, and I want to say his name was Jim Brewer. Used to do a skit that he would impersonate Joe Pesci, and like in a late night talk show, and then his like co-host was Robert De Niro, and so they played up all the characteristics that those two actors had in Martin Scorsese films. Have you seen like Goodfellas and Casino and Raging
Yeah,
Bull? Those things like that. I mean,
yeah,
it was a really funny skit, and it was really popular. And Jim Brewer always played Joe Pesci, but they changed up who played De Niro a couple of times. But they had De Niro as just this no nonsense, says very little words, because Joe Pesci was all, yeah, blah 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 blah, how you doing today, Bobby? How you doing? And he'd be like, pretty good, and that's all he'd say, and that was just hilarious. And it even came to a point where the actual Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci showed up on the show while they were doing them, and they played with that like they were gonna kick their asses and shit like that. But yeah, so I think that's those skits, that run of skits. It was very popular, that was in the popular mind. So I think Robert De Niro was kind of playing himself being impersonated. He was playing off of that, or because I think that's obviously what they had in mind. So as far as where I was going from there, that much did capture my interest because I thought, okay, I see this trope, I see what they're doing with De Niro. I wanted to see, okay, it's like, okay, well, how because I knew it was a comedy. I'm like, well, how are they going to subvert it? Are they going to subvert it in a way that's going to be clever, or is it going to insult my intelligence? So I mean, I was definitely, I fastened my seatbelt at that point. But I'll admit, I mean, I was a little bit skeptical.
yeah. This, I when I watched Robert De Niro do his thing in this movie, I thought, okay, this is Robert De Niro, just like you said, this is Robert De Niro being Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
He's and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that as a
right.
bad thing. That's just Robert De Niro being Robert De Niro. You know, um, because if this was anyone else, this movie would have been even worse. I felt like because again, this has nothing to do with Eddie Murphy or Robert De Niro or any of the actors. This has to do with the writing and the director, where this movie just the ending just fell flat. I to me this was much like a excuse my language, but this is a cock tease. You know what I mean? It's like you're almost getting to that climax, and then it's just it's a dud. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Like again, like it wasn't anything that's gonna piss me off because it's a kind of movie where you're not gonna have those high expectations. You just one of those movies where it's just like I can sit down and just turn my brain off for once and just enjoy a good movie. But at the same time, it's like, man, it's is this really that good of a movie? At the end of the day, um, because it is because in the middle of the movie where they finally meet Vargas at the club, right? And Eddie Murphy goes up there and he does, Eddie Murphy just does Eddie Murphy things, right? So he goes to the DJ, starts wiggy wiggy wiggy, interrupts the whole record playing and the DJ and everything, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's like, "Hey, look, we're looking for Vargas. Anybody know where Vargas is?" And then Vargas is sitting up there, and he's like, "All right, cool. Like that was cool. Like that was a way that you can get you can introduce the two protagonists meeting the antagonist, but in a funny way. And again, you can't do it without these two. Just like again, not to compare it to other buddy cop movies, but again, you can't have Rush Hour without Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. You just can't do it. You can't have one or the other. You got to have both. And this movie, again, it did it. Now, in the end of this movie, that is the part that fell flat for me because you get the bad guy, blah blah, whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, it's like what's next for these two? You know what I mean? What's next for what's his name, Trey or something like that for Trey, and what's next for Preston? And what's next for But again, this is a one-off movie, so I guess we didn't necessarily need that. But it's just one of those movies where it's like, look, I just got to cut it off for me. I just got to cut my brain off for a minute, sit back and just enjoy a movie. What were your thoughts about the ending?
Well, this really brings a lot of thoughts to mind about some criticisms that I have about mainstream films. It's probably going to lose me some fans, but the thing about these types of films, right? I don't know what the budget was, but they had some big names, and I mean, they were kind of big names that, in a way, they were kind of fading away. I mean, like I was talking about Eddie Murphy, and I mean, really, it's like Robert De Niro. I'm sure there was probably something, but I'm trying to, it was like when The Irishman came out on Netflix, and it was directed by Martin Scorsese. I was kind of like, wow, has Robert De Niro been anything really serious or really outstanding, since about this time? So I had that experience with him. So with the ending, it's kind of like, well, the thing about it is with comedies, mainstream comedies, right? Because mainstream comedies want to be able to sell as many tickets as they can, and they want to have a mass appeal, and they're kind of populist. They want it to appeal. They want an everyman character, or they want a character that has something sort of odd about them. Here's Trey Sellers. He's an actor. He's got big dreams. He's really offbeat. He's not doing well at acting, and he's not doing well at being a cop. So, by the end, he ends up going with the cop route, and it just made me feel like, oh, this is just here to make people feel better about choosing their crappy jobs and living their boring lives. Like I said, I'm not going to win any fans with this, but as an offbeat person myself, but yeah, this is where it comes in, where it's like a lot of mainstream movies just play to the middle. They play the safe right, because they just want those people to watch the movie, because people go to the movie and they expect to be, they don't expect to be vilified. They expect to be verified, what they're going. And I think that was kind of the way with De Niro's character too, where he was the tough cop, badass dude, but he started to soften up, even though he kept his, he maintained his composure in some ways, but he kept the dog. And there's one little detail, about it too, was he wore a solid shirt, right? Remember, Trey told him, yeah, you need to wear a solid shirt. It makes you look more slimming on television. And then they were at the interrogation at the prison. That was the setup for the prisoner to reveal who was behind all of it.
Yeah, he was talking about the club.
And then she noticed he had a solid shirt on. Well, I saw that was like the breaking point, where it's like, oh, okay, from this point on, De Niro's going to loosen up a little bit. He's going to start to like it a little, and but he's going to grow as a character in a way. He's not going to go Hollywood, but he's going to learn something about this experience that's going to make him a little bit different from the beginning of the movie than he was before. And the same thing with Trey. I mean, honestly, I kind of wished he would have become a successful actor, instead of becoming a detective. But I'm a flaky artist, so that's where my mind's at. I'm not a Joe Sixpack, seeing a movie or whatever and just kind of wanting to, and this is what this movie is. You're just take your brain out, you take your worries, you just sit there and just let a movie affirm your life that is might not be as exciting as the way Hollywood people live their lives.
Yeah, facts. Um, but again, like I enjoyed the villain. I enjoyed the especially the prison scene. That prison scene with old dude, like he was funny ever since the beginning of the movie, where where they were at that drug deal or that drop, and
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Niro and his partner, like that entire like that character was hilarious. Obviously, Kadeem Harrison's character, the one that was helping out Trey, trying to get the job on the show, like he was hilarious too. Like there are some some minor characters in this movie that were hilarious as well, and made this movie again fun. Like this movie was fun. It wasn't a great movie or anything like that. It wasn't even I maybe you might be able to call it a classic, but again, what kind of constitutes a movie as classic, but look, for a movie that came out almost 20 years ago, I still liked it. You know what I mean? Again, it wasn't great, not one of the best movies of all time. It's not going to have a striking storyline or anything like that, but it was a good movie to have a good time in. It was a good movie to have a good experience for about an hour and a half, just to sit down and watch a good old buddy cop movie. Uh, so now, Mark, as we're winding down here, I want to know, man, what grade? What grade would you give Showtime with Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro?
C plus.
Really?
And it only
Oh,
gets the plus because I thought De Niro and Eddie Murphy gave good performances. I thought they did a little bit better than other movies that I would have otherwise given a C or C minus, in the formulaic way that things were subverted yet maintained as well. It because I mean we look at Vargas the villain, and I mean honestly, if you're going to have an action comedy, you definitely have to have real stakes, right? Because otherwise you're not going to be invested in the film, right? You're not going to care about the characters that much. If they're police and everything and they're just goof offs and nothing is coming to anything and there's no danger there, no, people aren't going to get with it. They're not going to be invested. But
yeah,
I thought you made some good points about Vargas, the villain, his, the way he was, portrayed and yeah, the guy was like, I mean, I don't know, that confession scene. I'm surprised that guy didn't end up dead, right? He didn't, right? Unless I forgot, right?
no,
The
no,
guy, I was like, oh my god, he's so dead.
yeah,
So,
because
I
that's what happens in
mean,
every movie, right?
yeah, and any serious film that would have been just, or like one of those action shows on TV, that would have been just like, well, that's telegraphing his future death. So I was kind of surprised, but not disappointed that he wasn't killed. Because he was a
Yeah,
likable guy. But yeah, I mean, it's it's still very run of the mill, sort of middle of the road, with just a little bit of spice, but mostly the mayonnaise.
yeah. I respect your grade. I really do. Um, and going off of and it's crazy because it's your first time watching this movie as well, so you had like a fresh experience to this movie, a fresh it's fresh eyes to this movie. Me, not so much. I'm gonna have to give this movie a surprisingly B minus. That's right. I gave this movie a B minus, and I gave it a B minus because solely because to me, it was more than just the story. It was more than just the characters. This was just a full on experience. I had an excuse to go back and watch a movie that I watched as a kid and thoroughly enjoyed. Because then, also, even as a kid, obviously, when you're watching a movie as a kid, you're not really going through all the measures you should be when it comes to film. So we're kind of biased, when we're kids. I feel like, but as an adult, you can really sit down, break down a movie pretty well, and say, hey, this is what constitutes a good movie. This is what doesn't constitute a good movie.
Mhm.
Again, all of it's subjective, but at the same time, it's the way you look at it through your own lens. Me, B minus. This movie was funny. It had some good action in it. Oh, actually, scratch that. I can't say good action in it. but it had action. There was action in it. There were, guns were blazing, bullets were flying, all that cool stuff. But again, that ending just fell flat for me. The second half of the movie, somewhat was going on a downward spiral, but not too terribly wrong to where you couldn't watch the movie. Again, this movie is very watchable for anyone who has not seen Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro on the same screen, um, and watching Showtime. Look, watch this movie. I would definitely recommend this movie. I wouldn't recommend it on like a Friday night, on a Friday night date night or anything like that. I would probably recommend this movie when, like Mark said, when you've got 2 hours of free time, or you got like an hour and a half of free time. I would say sit down and watch this movie. But otherwise, just go off our review. But anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to say, Mark, about Showtime?
As a matter of fact, I do. And this is going to seem like it comes kind of out of left field, but it's something I want to say about this film in particular, but a lot of films in general. I'm a James Brown fan. I am familiar with his discography. And being that familiar, I'll give you an idea. I really like James Brown, yet I have not been able to listen to everything in this discography. It is fucking huge. My favorite James Brown song is Down and Out in New York City. And that comes from a Fred Williamson film, Black Caesar. And but people, if you hear this, a lot of people are like, what song is what? Down and Out in New York City. Well, I don't know, man. You got to hear it. Because you know what? And this is where my point's going. There are more James Brown songs than I Feel Good. Please play some other songs. It's always I Feel Good. And especially when it's in the trailer and people are dancing to it and grannies are doing backspins on their walkers. I feel good. Geez. It's, 1,000 times. So, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Discover James Brown's discography. The man truly is a genius. If you know anything about music, truly was a genius.
But look, ladies and gentlemen, look, Showtime. It's a movie I would say that's at least worth an hour and a half of you watching. So if you guys haven't seen it, take a look. And also, if you have already seen it, let us know in the comments, guys. Let us know. Tell us in the comments. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell us about the bits and pieces that maybe they could have fixed. Maybe they did things perfectly. Do you think that this was literally the last true buddy cop movie of that genre? Let us know in the comments. But again, I am me, Mark. I know you got some plugs. Where can people find you?
Oh, please find me at the Walter Paisley Cafe.com. You can also find me on Facebook under the Walter Paisley Cafe, as well as Spadow and and Mark Plaid. So you can also find Mark Plaid on Twitter, as well as the Walter Paisley Cafe and Spadow, as well as Instagram. Just look for those names. Just look for those, just for those, like my monikers, things like that, and you'll find me. And I would love it if you would give me a shout and talk movies with me, talk comic, talk music. Really into crazy music too. A lot of it's pretty neat, man. I look like I just listen to heavy metal and punk rock, but so you don't know. So thank you very much, Corn.
Oh, no problem, man. Yeah, man. Check out Mark's stuff. Like I say every single episode, you gotta check out Mark's stuff. I do have a couple plugs I gotta get out the way. There's a new Patreon for Hap. It's called Hap Entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. It's for all the exclusive videos that the corn rants, all that other stuff, and exclusive interviews, and I'm trying to get and stuff like that. So make sure you guys keep an eye out for Patreon. I only have one tier; it's $3. So go ahead and go over there. I already got one video up. Look, whatever we can't put on YouTube, it's gonna go on Patreon. So make sure you guys go ahead and check out Patreon. Now, with that out of the way, I want to let you guys know one very important thing. We're done here with the Showtime movie review, but here in just about 25-30 minutes, we're gonna be back on here because we have a HAP Film Panel episode coming live right at you guys at 8:10. So here in about 30 minutes, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Stay on this channel here on YouTube, and we will be back at 8:10 tonight in about 30 minutes. And we got a whole slew of topics for you, including Trailer Thursdays. That may be a thing here in 2021. It may be more relevant in 2021 than any other year because everybody's catalog's backed up. Everybody's got all these movies made. Now just waiting to release them. Everybody's got their movies on the shelf. So we're going to be talking about that. Obviously, it's going to be affecting the streaming wars as well because you're talking about Black Widow, Space Jam, all the other stuff. Mortal Kombat's going to come out as well. So look, streaming wars are at an all-time high at this point. Also, we're going to be talking about Pierce Brosnan being cast as Dr. Fate and Black Adam. We're going to be talking about that whole thing too. Look, we got a whole slew of topics tonight, guys. So stay tuned. Again, I am me. This is Mark. We're Half-Ass Pod, and we are OU.